All right, guys, welcome to the first episode of the Sailing EV podcast. My name is Michael Potts. I live on a Scepter 36-foot sailboat, and this is where I'm today. I'm actually in Miami, okay? I'm in the worst anchorage ever, actually. If you look, go look on Google Maps, okay? If you look at the port of Miami coming in, and there's Miami Beach just north of that. There's like the actual Miami, the city of Miami Beach is there. To the left of that, there's like 1,000 boats all anchored there. Some of them are old derelict boats. Some are newer yachts. So I'm anchored there, and it's the worst spot here because it's so rocky. All these big super yachts go by, and you just bob around all day. Anyway, I'm kind of stuck here because I'm waiting for an IC chip, an integrated circuit chip for a PCB on an Raymarine Autopilot 4000 ST4000i plus. Anyway, what happened was I destroyed my auto helm. And how did I do that? I was in Bimini, and what happened was I engaged the auto helm. There's like a little latch, you can engage it, and I looked up and I was heading right for this huge metal buoy. And I turned the steering wheel while the autopilot was engaged. And essentially that little 12-volt motor that's on there that turns the auto helm, turns the helm, it sent electricity back up and from the drive unit into the panel, the Raymarine ST4000i Plus panel. And inside there are some sensitive electronics. And it fried it. So it was still working and showing the display of your compass angle, all that. It just wouldn't operate. It just wouldn't do anything anymore. It would say no data. So I took that apart, and I opened up the back of it and looked at the PCB, the printed circuit board. And under a magnifying glass, I came to the conclusion that the L324 op-amp chip had grounded out. Basically what happens when you overload a chip is that in the center of each of these IC chips you usually have V11, which is ground, and it's there for a reason, so that if there's too much voltage that goes back through it, it'll actually ground itself out and fry the chip. Anyway, it fried the chip, and I have some experience with soldering, that sort of thing, so I've ordered one from Amazon. I actually ordered 68 of them. It was only $14. It's a bunch of assorted IC chips. And I'm getting it delivered here to the marina, Miami Beach Marina. So I'm going to be able to fix that. Hopefully, I'm going to solder it. That's going to probably be in the next episode. Anyway, I contacted Raymarine and was like, hey guys, I'm about to show the internet how to fix your consoles with a $2 chip. They never got back to me. Anyway, guys, get settled and grab a coffee. I'm going to talk a little bit today on this first podcast about exactly what it's like to live on a sailboat. I mean, I've been doing it for over 3 years now, and this podcast is probably going to be, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes long. It's the first one. I'm just trying this thing out, see if you guys actually listen to this. So you've decided you want to live on a sailboat, and you want to move out of your apartment, and you want to get yourself a boat and live on a boat full time. Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about my experience so far in Canada. Now, I still live. I live on the boat here. I'm in Miami, but anyway, I sailed all the way here. So, when I first bought Evie, her name was Kakalina, actually, which is a stupid name. I saw her. She was up in Georgian Bay, and I saw her on the Hard, and I fell head over heels in love with her. She was such a beautiful looking machine, and it took about a month, and I purchased her and launched her, and actually put her on a truck trailer. I had to rent a truck trailer and ship her down to Whitby, and had her skeg rebuilt. And then I'm basically, is it cheaper to live on a sailboat versus an apartment? And I would say absolutely 100% yes. And in this, I want to teach you guys something here that'll save you money. All right, if you're intending on, oh, I want to go live on a sailboat, I want to travel the world, I want to sail down in the Antarctic or over to the Britain or to the Caribbean like me. These are things that are totally achievable. It's just the learning curve on it is crazy. So my intention here in the next 15 minutes is just to break it down for you of what I've learned, okay, in terms of living on a sailboat with the intention of doing long distance sailing. Okay, so how much does it cost to live on a sailboat in a marina in Canada, roughly? So basically the way it works in Canada is you pay by the season. Okay, for one, it's more expensive in the winter to live on a sailboat during the winter by about 25%. Okay, for example, during the summer I would pay about $3,200 Canadian. That would get me 6 months season. That would get me one haul out, and it also would include electricity and water. Okay, and you're allowed to use the pump out dock yourself. But if you during the winter, if you need a pump out, they actually roll like a big machine on a track that has a tank, and they suck the poo out of your holding tank then and there in the winter. So let's just go through the summer first. So $3,200 Canadian, and you got your rent paid for 6 months in advance. Now that's pretty good, if you ask me. I lived in all sorts of places in Toronto over the years, and in Vancouver, and I'm gonna ballpark this, but you can hear the sugar scoop just smashing off the swell here, from these boats. Anyway, that's what the noises are in the background. So, holy man, yeah. So $3,200 gets you paid up for 6 months. For one, it's great to pay your rent in advance, because then you don't have to worry about it monthly. You're off the rat wheel, so to speak. Okay, and you got a place where you can park your boat. It's safe there. It's out of the weather. And it's a great freeing experience to say, oh, I have 6 months. I don't have to worry about rent for 6 months. Now, walking up the dock in the summer is beautiful. It's like every time I'd come home from work, I would walk up the dock and into this other world. Okay? And it really was something special, because I'd come home, I'd leave all my work worries behind. I'd walk up the dock to the boat. And there it was. It was like, I could sit out back on the boat and the beautiful sunsets, and it would, to me, I fell in love with it right away. And you guys will love it if you do that, if you find the right boat. So, $3,200 gets you 6 months. All right, that season goes by, and then there's the winter. All right, so the winter expenses are going to be a little more. Let's talk about insurance. So I managed to get my boat insured for the year for $1,200. Okay, and that you can't go into marinas, you can't live on a boat in a marina without insurance, because they're going to ask you for that, and they're going to make sure. And then there's going to be other fees too. So in the next little bit here, I'm going to talk about how I shower, how I get my water, what it's like in the summer and winter. And would I do it again? What would I do differently? So let's get into that. All right. So first off, guys, you got to find the right boat. Okay. Don't just jump into the first boat you see. I almost bought a piece of garbage for like $4,000 way off in Hamilton. And I phoned my parents, and they were like, no, Mike, don't do it. Don't do it. And they talked me out of it, which was the smartest thing ever, because this was like a 1974 piece of junk that some kid had lived in. And I was just excited. I just wanted to live on a boat and be in the marina. You fall in love with the sound of the masts, the halyards on the masts, and the birds, and the community down in the city. And you just want to be on the water and just not be stuck in an apartment watching some screen, hating your life. You know what I mean? So you got to find the right boat, guys. Absolutely 100% must find the right boat. Now, how are you going to do that? Don't just jump into the first boat you need. Okay, let's get a rough idea. If you let's say it's you and your wife, you're going to need something bigger than 34 feet. Okay, if you're like me, a single dude, a filmmaker, a guy who works in the film industry and lives in a hotel, most of his working time anyway. Like I actually work for a company in North Bay, but I live in Toronto. North Bay is about 4 hours north, and they pay for my hotel pretty much 6 months of the year. They just, you know, that's why this was so perfect for me to be able to do this channel and to be sailing, is because during the winter they give me time off most of the time, like 4 to 5 months off a year. And the rest of the time I'm like doing 16-hour days as a focus puller with IATSE 667, making these movies for Amazon in North Bay. All right, I'm a focus puller. I'm the camera department head, and the union representative for the show. So there's quite a bit of responsibility. It's somewhat of a high-paid job in terms of, you know, I am 45, but I'm sure there's lots of people out there that make gazillions of dollars. But this, I'm comfortable, okay? And my accommodations get paid for, so I can, you know, during my time off, I used to drive home just to be on the boat for like a day. I would drive for 4 hours after doing 16-hour days. I would drive back to the boat just to be there. I loved it that much. Okay, you got to find the right boat, guys. And first of all, do not buy a boat unless you've had a survey. Okay, I had a buddy of mine, camera operator. I'm not going to mention his name. He knows who it is. He actually bought a boat here in Miami, a Catalina, and he called me and was like, I bought a boat. It's 38 feet, and I'm like, awesome, man. How did the survey go? And he's like, I didn't have a survey. I'm like, whoa, okay. Where is it? It's at anchor. And he was in Canada. He'd bought a boat that was at anchor here in Miami, just floating, probably in this area where I am right now. And I said to him, dude, you've made a huge mistake. You're crazy. And I'm like, what about insurance? He's like, the boat's uninsured. I'm like, oh my God. So that means you can't even bring your boat in to get serviced because you don't have insurance. Marinas won't even let you go to their dock without insurance. Okay. And if your boat hits another boat and you don't have insurance, you're liable for that. Okay. The insurance is not about you worrying about your boat. And somewhat it is. You're worried about hitting an expensive super yacht that's going to be like, you know, you just ding it and it costs $10,000 to fix, because that's when you're going to do an insurance claim and you'll be fine. But as soon as you have an insurance claim on boats, you're done. Your insurance is going to go way up. So you just do everything in your power not to have insurance claims. Now, insuring old boats is really hard to do, but it is possible. You just got to, before you buy your boat to live on it, make sure you have insurance lined up, or talk to the owner of the boat, see what insurance he has. Okay, don't just jump into a boat. I looked at like 30 boats before I bought mine. Okay, I almost bought a boat at one point, and some guy had like skipped the line and went to his door, knocked on it, and gave him cash for it. And I'm kind of glad that I didn't get that boat, because I ended up with Edie, and she's been a really great boat. Okay, a really great sailboat. 36 feet, 11.5 foot beam, 6 foot draft. You know, she's got all the bells and whistles of a cruising yacht. We're already there. Like davits. It had a dinghy with a good new motor, which is now trashed. Solar panels, solar charger, batteries, that sort of thing. Now I spent a fortune, and those 3 years working on all those systems. I rebuilt the engine. Okay, I rebuilt pretty much everything on the boat was messed with, and I spent quite a bit of money so that I could be off the grid. Now, so you're considering moving out of your apartment. You've convinced your wife or girlfriend that you want to live on a sailboat. Okay, your whole life will change. Okay, because it seems glamorous at first. Oh, I live on a yacht, right? It's not. It's nothing like that. Having showers is hard because you got to walk up the dock, go have a shower. Although I made a bit of a routine of it. I liked it. In the facilities where I was in Frenchman's Bay Marina, in Pickering, in Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, it was great. I loved it. I loved walking up the dock here and going from there. So, look, guys, if there's anything that you can learn from this first podcast, okay, you decided you want to make the leap. You want to live in the phrase of society, the fringe of society. You want to live on a sailboat. You want to try and save a bit of money by giving up the amenities of an apartment, and you want to live on the water. I get it. I totally get it. For me, that was my biggest thing, and it's such a really rewarding experience if you actually go through with it and pull it off. It is critical that you get the right boat. Don't just jump into the first boat you see. Go look at as many boats as you can, find something, and then once you've got your boat of choice, get a survey done. Okay, pay the $550, have the guy go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and make damn sure, that it doesn't have wet decks and wet hull. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you guys a little thing that I learned. Okay, you can actually spend $350 Canadian, get yourself what's called a moisture meter. Okay, basically that's the tool that the guy's gonna say this boat's either good or not. He'll know within the first 10 minutes of doing the survey if that boat's reasonable or not. Right away, he's gonna put that moisture meter to the hull, and he's gonna say, dude, your hull's wet. It's done. It's not even worth it, buying this boat. Okay. Now this boat had some issues with wet moisture, but I bought it anyway, and I'm glad I did, because he had actually made a mistake. There was some burlap on the inside of the hull that was affecting the moisture readings, so I got away with that. And then when I had the marine architect rebuild the skeg, he said the hull was fine. He actually did some destructive testing, and it was fine. So there are points on the decks here that are wet, okay? And that's going to happen with any old boat, all right? This thing's a 1979. It's 1 year younger than I am, okay? Any old boat's going to have some issues with moisture somewhere. You get yourself a 2007 Catalina 34, sure, it's going to be way drier, but old boats are going to have all sorts of problems, and you just got to mitigate them, keep your eye on them, all right? So find yourself a boat that doesn't have a wet decks, doesn't have a wet hull. And the most important thing, guys, you gotta listen to me right now. Get yourself a decent engine. You're basically buying an engine, and a boat comes with it. Okay, I have a Yanmar 2QM 20 horsepower, which is underpowered for this boat for sure, but she is a great engine. Okay, and diesel. Do not buy an Atomic 4 gas engine. It's just too risky, guys. You can't have gasoline on a sailboat. You just can't. I mean, you're running propane. Jesus, man, it's really risky. You got to be careful. You got to have all the sensors. Find yourself a decent diesel engine. Find yourself a boat that you feel really comfortable and you're in love with, and that you can imagine yourself living there. Okay? And look, I'll tell you guys, you can get used to anything. And I'm proof of that. Jesus, I've been sailing. I've been out here sailing for the last 5 months. You can watch my YouTube channel. It's called Sailing EV. Obviously, you can go through and watch all the videos from the very beginning when I bought this boat up until me being here in Miami. Okay? And sailing 1,000 nautical miles. I went across to the Bahamas. You know, I had to come back because of issues. You guys will see that in the videos. You know, and I've learned so much, and I intend to pass on this knowledge in these podcasts in the future. But today's topic, okay, guys, is you've decided to move on to a sailboat. You're going to live on a sailboat. What's it going to cost you? $3,200 a month was what I was paying, and that gets you. This is a 36-foot boat. That gets you your slip, electricity. You're going to pay about $1,000 for insurance, and that'll give you everything you need. They're going to give you a car parking spot too, so you can park your car, which is great. Okay, now let's talk about this. This will apply to people that are in Canada. In Canada, as soon as you pass November, it goes really cold into the minus, sometimes minus 30, and the marinas will charge you more. In the summer, it's $3,200. In the winter, you're looking at $4,200. It's an extra $1,000, and that's usually for hydro because you're heating your boat. Okay. And they're going to plow your dock, and they'll make sure it's shoveled in most cases. And they'll make sure you got a plowed spot for your car, your parking spot. Now, you're going to have to, the marina will make sure that you have A, insurance for the winter to live aboard, and B, they'll ask you to cover your boat with this shrink wrap. Okay? Now, what does that cost? How much is it going to cost you to winterize your sailboat? There's a video about it. You can watch it on my channel. There's a whole series about living on a boat during the winter. You can check that out on my channel. You know, I did it myself. and it ended up costing me about $350. Okay, and that was mostly for a big roll and some lumber and screws, and I did it all myself. Now you can pay someone else to do that, and it's going to cost you about $600-700. Okay, for a 36-foot boat, which I think is worth doing. Have a pro do it. These guys do it all the time. They do it quickly and they do it efficiently. There's a learning curve when you're winterizing a sailboat, when you're covering it with shrink wrap during the winter. Okay, there's a huge learning curve. I went through it over 3 years. Okay, and at the end of the day, I'd be like, nah, just spend the $700. Have a pro do it so it looks really good. Put some Christmas lights in there, and at the end of the day, it's just so much better. It's nice and cozy during the winter on a sailboat. Basically, you have a little door. You get yourself a shovel so you can shovel off your slip, your dock. And how do you get water during the winter? Here's another thing. Basically, what you do is you get yourself a long garden hose, and they sink the hose that usually runs up the dock at sea level. They sink it down to the bottom. So what you do is you attach your hose to a string and you sink it to the bottom as well, and it doesn't freeze. When you need it, you bring it up through the hole in the ice, and you can refill your water tanks from there. Now, they'll also, the insurance company is going to make sure you have yourself a bubbler. Okay, what a bubbler is, it's basically just like a motor that runs full time when it's really cold, and it churns up the water so it doesn't freeze around your hull. And they're going to want to see a receipt of the type that you've bought, and the marina's also going to want to make sure I got a tailor-made one, a brand new one. It cost me $1,200. I have it here on the boat. I did see them used for $600, so there's another cost. You're going to have to buy yourself a bubbler. Now, you could use... I learned this lesson hard. You don't really need one. You could get away with, like, one of these pumps. You know, what are they called? To drain things out. One of these pumps. You don't need a huge one like I did. I was basically like, it was running and it got down to minus 30 and it worked really well. But yeah, you can't just leave your hull. You got to have a bubbler. That's another expense. All right, so I mean, it was kind of fun. Friends would visit, and shopping would be a pain in the ass during the winter because you have to load all your groceries and bring them in and load everything and garbage every day. And then pump outs, right? You can't go to the pump out dock because the water's frozen. So it's a bit of a pain. And every time you use that washroom, you're going to have to pay to have it pumped out. And it was $50 every time you want to pump out your holding tank, all your peas and poos. You'd have to pay $50. Now, I found ways around that. I mean, yeah, you'll just figure it out. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but there's ways around it. You can just pee in a bucket and chuck it over the side, which you're not supposed to do. But basically, yeah, it can get expensive for pump outs. You use the washroom at the shower, like at the bathroom in whatever marina you're at. All right, so one other thing here, guys. I'm not going to go too crazy here. This is my first podcast. I'm just trying to tell you guys things about sailing, and I'm going to make more of these, and I hope you're finding this interesting. All right, so you've got your boat, you've put it into a marina, and now you're living on it. Okay, it's the beginning of the summer, and you got to learn how to sail now. Okay, you gotta understand what it is to operate your boat. Now, coming in and out of marinas is hard at first. You got to learn how to untie the lines and go. I'm a pro at it now, obviously, but for the first 6 months, I'd come in and smash the boat off the dock. People were always coming out when they saw me coming in because I was a horrible captain at first in terms of coming in and out of the marina. But yeah, I love it. I love the idea of your house being able to float. I was always obsessed with that. It's like, wow, I can pull energy from the sun and operate everything I need right here on the boat. It's kind of like having an off-grid floating house, okay, that can move around the world by wind power. To me, that was just absolutely fascinating, and I proved that is totally possible. For example, I've been at anchor for 5 months. Okay, I've gone into maybe 15 marinas over the last 5 months. The rest of the time I was at anchor. And guys, I learned the lesson hard. I had originally had a road anchor with 30 feet of chain. I ended up caught under a bridge in Atlantic City. Literally had to be rescued by the Coast Guard, ruined the top of my mast, and then I had to spend the money on a chain. You gotta have a chain. If you're gonna be out in a tidal situation, Lake Ontario, don't worry about it. You can use the rope all you want, no problem. In some of the videos I sailed off, I got my boat, I got it all fixed, and I would go off for weeks and explore Lake Ontario. It was so fun, just me and the boat, learning how to sail. Oh, it was so exciting. I loved it so much, that those are the experiences you look back on and you're just like, wow, that was so much fun. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about sailing and the boat. And, I went and explored Main Duck Island, which is an island in the middle of Lake Ontario. A lot of people don't realize there's an island in the middle of Lake Ontario on the north end. Okay, the Main Ducks. And I went all the way up to the St. Lawrence. Oh, it was something special. I was like, wow, I can actually go off for weeks on this boat, my house, and move it around and explore. And I did that all single-handedly. At first, I had a buddy, Sean, with me. And he's off in like Argentina or something, or Peru or something with his girlfriend, which is great. I haven't seen him for a while. Big shout out to Sean Stoneham. All right, so guys, first of all, really look through your budget. Yes, you can save money by living on a sailboat, for sure, which can allow you to save and reinvest into your boat so you can go off and have adventures. Yes, that is totally possible. And I'd say there's a huge savings. If you're paying $1,400 a month, plus hydro, plus internet, the rest of it, your bills you're on a rat wheel, okay? You're never going to get anywhere. That's the way society is designed, to keep you paying bills and where you are, poor, barefoot, and pregnant, okay? On a sailboat, you have some freedom. Even if everything ended, the world came to crashing down, you would still be able to get your energy from the sun, This motor is so efficient. I fill that diesel tank, like when I was in Lake Ontario, I'd probably fill it like 3 or 4 times a season, just because it's so efficient. I mean, it burns like 0.8 of a liter per hour. It's just great. The tank holds like 55 gallons and just amazing. So, guys, what have we learned today about living on a sailboat? We learned a little bit how much it costs. You got to have a survey. Hope this podcast has been helpful. So for some of the people out here, I'm going to be doing more of these as we go along. I'm going to talk about certain topics about sailing, so to help your journey. If you guys have questions, you can make comments. I will answer all your questions. Hope you found this really interesting. All right, I'm going to get back to work here. So, Captain Michael, signing out. Hope you guys found that interesting, guys. Fair winds, following seas.